Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Was Sasori's Disciple. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 6, First Impressions. Carefully hidden, Cesori watched from distance as Naruto waved his brand new leaf Hittite around like it was some kind of a prize. Children are so easily excited. He passed, remarked Kabuto behind him. Hardly unexpected, answered Cesori. I thought you wanted him to leave the village with you, said Kabuto. And he will, stated Cesori calmly. But the chances that he'll fail the second test, said Kabuto. Well, I wouldn't bet on it, that's for sure. Konoha had a pretty modest standard for graduating genin. Cesori reached into his pocket and handed a folded piece of paper to Kabuto, who unfolded it and started to read. The medic Nin took a deep breath after finishing, gathering his thoughts. If this is what he's planning, then, began Kabuto. Exactly, said Cesori. I don't even have to look for Orochimaru. If I wait for the Chunin exams to come to Konoha, he'll come to me instead. That's why whether Naruto graduates or not is not important. I would have stayed here for a while anyway. I have to prepare the terrain. Orochimaru thinks he's springing a trap in Konoha from within, but when he comes there will already be a trap waiting for him. Said Kabuto. But I still think it would be easier for us if Naruto fails. If he becomes a ninja, he can't leave without becoming a missing nin. Don't be naive, Kabuto, said Cesori with annoyance. He's a Kyuubi Jinchuriki. They're not letting him go without a fight no matter what his official status is. And you don't think he'll take a liking for the village after serving as a ninja for several months? Cesori smirked. Truth be told, he went ahead and procured the team assignment documents that have been made in advance for Naruto's class. He had initially planned to manipulate them and assign Naruto into the worst team he could assemble. But once he'd seen the team Naruto will almost certainly be assigned on, he knew he had his work already done for him. In any case, even if the boy can handle his team, the fact remains that he was never exactly a secretive type. The abilities he has will come to light pretty quickly once he's out in the field, and people will start to ask where he got them. Cesori was pretty sure that by the time Chunin exams take place, Naruto will be thoroughly sick of the village and their suspicion. I think Naruto will find his life as a ninja to be a frustrating experience, said Cesori with amusement. And if Naruto does fail? Asked Kabuto. I'll just let him simmer in Konoha a bit, Cesori said. I can think of nothing that would fuel the boy's resentment as much as seeing all his former friends as official ninja while he has to repeat the academy all over again. Cesori turned around and started walking back to his shop. Let's go, Kabuto. We'll let the boy amuse himself with ninja business for a while. We have our own task anyway. I want everything ready when Orochimaru gets here. Break. Naruto skipped along happily towards his apartment, occasionally running a hand over the Hittite over his forehead to make sure it was really there. Sasori's remarks during the week leading up to the exams sounded a little ominous to Naruto, and he had begun to feel that his mentor knows something that Naruto doesn't. Fortunately, it seems Cesori was merely putting pressure on him. Naruto passed with flying colors, second only to Sasuke. True, there was still the second test to pass, but Naruto didn't worry about that much. It was already dark, so only his hearing allowed him to dodge a hail of kunai on his position. He almost concluded it was Anko saying hello, but she never aimed to kill on occasions like this. Well, not unless you really piss her off. A person jumped onto the branch of a nearby tree, well within the illumination of the closest streetlight. Clearly the man wanted Naruto to recognize him. Mizuki-sensei? Naruto asked in surprise. What the hell do you think you're doing? You could have killed me, the man sneered. Killing you is the exact thing I'm trying to do, demon brat. Having you walk around freely is bad enough, but having the Kyuubi as an official ninja of Konoha is something I just can't stand. Naruto resisted the urge to groan. He had noticed, back in the testing room, that Mizuki didn't seem very pleased at Naruto's stellar performance. But he thought nothing of it. Apparently he should have. The man must have hated Naruto a lot if he was willing to go this far. You realize you'll have to leave the village if you kill me? Tried Naruto, mentally running a checklist of all his assets. He had a stack of regular kunai, plus 2 explosive ones. He had about 20 explosive notes, and a couple of smoke bombs. The only techniques he knew were academy ones. And that was it. Totally insufficient to stop Mizuki. His puppet may have given him the edge he needed, but it was back in his apartment, sealed in a storage scroll. Do you really want to become a missing nin over this? Let's just go home and pretend this whole incident never happened. What do you say? Mizuki unslung a windmill shuriken off his back and threw it towards Naruto. He'll take that as a no. Naruto threw one of his explosive kunai at the shuriken, which must have looked mighty amusing to Mizuki, Naruto trying to deflect the giant weapon with a puny little kunai and all. Naruto pulled at the chakra string, and the resulting explosion deflected the shuriken and obscured the space between Mizuki and Naruto. Taking advantage of the Mizuki's undoubtedly surprised reaction, Naruto threw his smoke bombs between them and quickly tied about 10 explosive notes to one of the kunai before activating them all and throwing the kunai straight up. Then he ran. The explosion was truly deafening, and Naruto hoped it would be enough to catch the attention of nearby patrols, because he wasn't so arrogant to think he could take on Mizuki all by himself. The man was more experienced, physically bigger, and came here prepared for combat. He could hear the footfalls as the Chunin rapidly closed the distance between them, so he was clearly faster as well. He tied the remainder of his explosive notes to a couple of kunai, saving just 2 of them, and started throwing those kunai around him, creating a stream of explosions that would hopefully create enough of the racket if the first one was no sufficient. He didn't know how long it has been since he started running, but Mizuki was rapidly approaching and Naruto's lead was evaporating. The fight seemed inevitable, and his entire arsenal consisted of 4 regular kunai, 1 explosive one, and 2 explosive notes. Did he make a mistake in using all those explosive notes to attract the attention of patrols? Where the hell were they? He ground to a halt in an instant, throwing 4 kunai at the spot his ears told him Mizuki would inhabit in a moment. Sure enough, Mizuki broke through the foliage soon enough, reflexively dodging the kunai. The third kunai, however, the one that seemed to be misaimed and thus not worth dodging, was his special one. Naruto pulled the chakra string and another explosion disturbed the knight's peace. If Naruto was lucky, that one knocked Mizuki unconscious, but he would not assume so. As fast as he could, Naruto produced 3 clones, only these weren't made to look like him, but like A and BU instead. It was just a small variation of the clone technique he made for himself, allowing him to combine clone and transformation techniques, and create clones different from himself, but hopefully it would be enough to fool Mizuki. With a bit of concentration he made the clones stand back for now and charged at the spot where Mizuki was, his last kunai in hand. Sure enough, Mizuki was still in fighting condition, though clearly dazed by the explosion. Naruto decided to push his advantage and attacked. Mizuki dodged the first 2 strikes but the third one found home, making a large gash across the Chunin's chest. Unfortunately, the man didn't scream and fall down, instead the pain seemed to snap him out of his daze, and he quickly drew his own kunai before lunging at Naruto. The man was clearly a weapon specialist type, because he was quite good at using kunai hand to hand. Naruto soon found himself with 3 gashes across his left arm and shoulder, and in a last-ditch effort to save his life he tugged at the clones, causing them to drop onto the scene. Their landing made no sound, but they were supposed to be A and BU, so Naruto figured Mizuki wouldn't find that suspicious. And he was right. The Chunin was mortified at the sight, enough so that it took him a full second to notice that Naruto activated his last 2 explosive notes, and jumped away. The blast dispelled the clones and caught both Naruto and Mizuki. Naruto was violently thrown back and couldn't get back up anymore. He coughed up some blood and desperately tried to bring his breathing under control. He was a bit too close to that one. He tried to dodge when he heard Mizuki attacking again, but his body just gave up on him, so he only rolled away from the incoming strike. While it did save his life in that very moment, he soon had his air knocked out of his lungs as Mizuki's foot collided with his stomach. "You really like explosions, don't you, you little shit?" asked Mizuki rhetorically, blood flowing over the right portion of his face and his chest, his right arm hanging uselessly by his side. There was a crazed expression on his face, and his body trembled, like the only thing that kept him going was pure willpower. "Me, I just like good old pointy objects." Naruto's eyes widened as Mizuki plunged kunai towards his gut. Through the haze of his rapidly approaching panic he realized there is no way he was going to dodge this, so instead he called upon the last ounces of strength he had and caught Mizuki's wrist, guiding the attack into a non-lethal spot. Pain exploded into his side. Did he succeed? He didn't know. Not that it matters, since the next strike will definitely finish him off. And that made him mad. He went through so much, spent so much effort to get here, and now he was going to be killed by an academy teacher with an axe to grind with a QB? It made him so very, very angry, like searing fire spreading throughout his body from his belly, slowly at first, then exploding within him, like some invisible barrier suddenly broke down. He felt Mizuki's trying to yank his wrist free from his grasp and he clamped down. He clamped down hard. He felt the bones in Mizuki's wrist crack and felt some sort of perverse glee in hearing the man scream in pain. He didn't know where he got the strength to break a grown man's wrist in his current condition, but it felt good. He opened his eyes again, glaring at the man as he twisted the arm, increasing the pain. Mizuki's face was glued onto Naruto's, staring straight into his eyes, a look of absolute terror plastered on his face. Mizuki was looking at him like he was a monster. Like he was. Naruto released the grip of Mizuki's wrist, and the Chunin immediately toppled over on his back in response. Naruto watched as Mizuki crawled away from him as quickly as he could, throwing panicked looks in his direction. Naruto felt sick at the sight. The source of his newfound strength drained away, and Naruto could again feel the pain of his wounds and the need to close his eyes and just rest. The last thing he saw before blacking out was several shadowy figures arriving onto the scene. Great! More enemies to finish him off. Break! Red eyes opened in the darkness, and the being to whom they belonged to looked at its surroundings with a hate few creatures could match. Finally, the being rumbled. It was about time for its host to come for a visit. Ah hell, don't tell me this my afterlife? Echoed the boys whining. A sewer? I wasn't that bad. At the very least I deserve a place that is dry and properly illuminated. This is not your afterlife, you imbecile, the being growled. The host's head snapped in the direction of the voice and took a step back at the sight of bloodlust-filled red eyes. As much as it amused the being to see fear in the boy's eyes, this was not the time for playing games. The boy quickly scanned the gate that held the being at bay, staring intently at the flimsy-looking piece of paper that served as a lock. Is this place what I think it is? The boy asked. Yes it is, the voice rumbled. Enough about that. I want to talk about that crap you used to lock me out. If I didn't succeed in overpowering that overlay you put over the seal, we'd both be dead right now. What does this tell you, Kyuubi? Tried Naruto. Giant eyes spun, rolling in their sockets. Of course it's the Kyuubi. I thought you stopped being brain dead a while now. Why did you bring me here? Asked Naruto crankily. We have nothing to say to each other. Kyuubi let loose a wave of killing intent at the boy. Here it was, being positively charming, and this little shit has the temerity to act with hostility. Somebody needs a reminder who he's talking to. Like hell we don't. The fox roared, walking into view and ramming itself against the bars, further startling the already terrified Naruto. Your stupid overlay nearly killed us both. You will never reapply that thing again, do you understand? You have no authority over me, said Naruto icily, regaining his composure. I will reapply it, and there is nothing you can do to stop me, stubborn fool. Fox snarled. Don't you realize? Next time I might not be able to help you if that thing is on. I don't need your help, said Naruto. The fox frowned. You gotta be fucking kidding me. What the hell do you think saved your life just now? You failed. You failed and would have died if it weren't for me. A miscalculation, said Naruto. If I had known Mizuki was so resilient I would have. Don't you fucking dare mention those toys you're playing around with, Kyuubi sneered. This is what you're blocking me for. So you could play with wooden dolls that wouldn't last half a second against my power and learn how to use medical techniques that are no match for healing properties of my Yuki? Insulting the skills I spent the last year and a half learning how to wield isn't earning you any points, you know, the boy said. I don't want you power. Really? Asked Kyuubi. You don't seem to complain about the superior senses and chakra capacity you got from me. And let me make something clear, that overlay isn't working the way you think it does. The boy gave Kyuubi a suspicious but interested look, and the fox knew it had at last hooked the boy. Finally, if the overlay stopped the mixing of our chakra completely, like you seem to believe, you'd be dead by now, the Kyuubi said. You are dependent on my chakra, as am I to yours. The overlay is merely keeping the flow at minimum and venting excess chakra from your coils to prevent pressure from forming. It does, however, block me out. So? The boy asked. I like that. I don't, growled Kyuubi. And since you seem to be dumber than I imagined, let me spell it out for you. As long as the flow of chakra between us remains, I am not powerless. My Yuki can heal your wounds, or it can be the nastiest poison you've ever come across. So far I have refrained from harming you with it, since weakening you does not benefit me in any way, but if you insist on treating me like an enemy, I will do the same. My Yuki will slowly break down your muscles and erode your nerve endings, eventually leaving you permanently consigned to a hospital bed, immobile and in pain. Kyuubi watched as emotions played across the boy's face. So the brat was finally taking it seriously, eh? Good, now to lay the cards down on the table. I admit it, the fox continued. You're a formidable host, and you can be troublesome to me if you're so inclined. But so can I to you. I'm offering you a deal here, something I have not done to anyone in a very long time. I suggest you cash this in while the opportunity still stands. Trust me, you don't want to be my enemy. What kind of deal are we talking about? The Kyuubi grinned viciously. It knew the boy would see things its way. Break. Yes, Kiba, you take on a grown-up chunin and come out victorious without a scratch. Give me a fucking break. Sarutobi stood at the doorway, listening to Naruto and Kiba bicker amongst themselves. To say he was surprised by the number of visitors in Naruto's room would be an understatement. Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, Yamanaka Ino, Naro Shikamaru, and Akamichi Tsuji stood and sat in various parts of the room, some staring at the Hokage, some paying attention to the fight between Naruto and Kiba. That was quite the gathering. Well, Naruto, said Sarutobi, causing everyone to look in his direction, I must say I'm impressed by the friends you managed to pick up in your class. Not everyone would feel obliged to spend an afternoon entertaining someone with your attitude. How they remained sane I'll never know. Naruto pouted, causing Sarutobi to chuckle. Naruto was so fun to tease. We're only here because Ino made us come, said Shikamaru, presumably referring to himself and Tsuji. Oh please, Ino said, waving her hand dismissively. You couldn't wait to challenge him to shogi, now that he can't get away from you and has nothing better to do. Shikamaru shot Ino a glare but quickly schooled his feature. He casually picked up his shogi board, getting up. Hokage wants to speak with Naruto, and I have to get home anyway, said Shikamaru. If it's not too much of a problem, said Sarutobi out of courtesy. I'd like if all of you leave Naruto and me alone for an hour or so. It wasn't really a suggestion, of course, so the room emptied quickly. Sarutobi discreetly studied young Hinata as she shot Naruto one last glance before exiting the room. The Hyuga girl had visited Naruto every day he was unconscious, and even chewed out a nurse that said something about Naruto that Hinata didn't like, if the report Hokage got was to be believed. Impressive friends indeed. Already making political connections, Naruto? Sarutobi inquired once they were alone. Huh, well, all of your friends are from major clans in Konoha. It seems you're really taking becoming Hokage seriously. I never expected such long-term planning from you. It's not like that, said Naruto. I don't go around trying to see which people would give me most political influence if I befriend them. It just sort of happened. I'll bet, said Sarutobi. But let's get down to business. Now that you're finally up, I want to hear what happened with you and Mizuki. As it happens, Sarutobi knew a lot about what happened. Mizuki survived in much better condition than Naruto, who hovered in critical condition for 3 full days and remained unconscious for 2 more. And people tend to get talkative when Ibiki gets a hold of them. Still, in the interest of thoroughness and proper procedure, he needed Naruto's report. Not to mention that there were some very strange things reported about the whole encounter from Mizuki's side. What Sarutobi immediately noticed was that Naruto's report was somewhat lacking in detail, unlike his usual manner of describing things where he tells you everything you wanted and didn't want to hear. It could be just another change in his personality, but Sarutobi had his doubts. There were moments where Naruto hesitated, as if considering whether to say something or not, but all these suspicions died in his mind when Naruto dropped the bomb. And then I drew upon Kyuubi's power and crushed Mizuki's wrist. Sarutobi stared at Naruto. You drew upon Kyuubi's power? Naruto sighed. I don't know how else I could have done what I did. And besides, when it happened Mizuki was looking at me with such terror shit, old man, I didn't mean for it to happen, alright? Naruto, it's okay, I didn't. I just wanted to live, you know? Said Naruto, ignoring him. Or perhaps not hearing him. I was lying there with a kunai in my side and I kept thinking about how I don't want to die and how unfair it was of that jerk to attack me for something I have absolutely no control over. And I suddenly felt this fire spreading from my belly and suddenly all I wanted was to hurt him back. I wanted to hurt him back. Sarutobi remained silent as Naruto gradually calmed down. Old man, said Naruto quietly. Tell me honestly, am I going to get locked up? No, said Sarutobi. I have faith in the Yondaime and his sealing expertise. You drawing upon Kyuubi's power when your life was endangered was probably a deliberate function of the seal. In any case, I already had your coils examined while you were unconscious, and it's clear you're not being possessed by the Kyuubi. The seal is still working. Sarutobi decided not to mention that Naruto's coils were rather strange. The examiner suggested that there was another seal overlaid over Shiki Fujin that broke down recently, but Sarutobi dismissed it at the time as political machinations to paint Naruto as an increased risk. Now it seemed obvious that the sudden influx of Kyuubi's chakra into his coils messed them up temporarily. He should be fine in a few weeks. As for the attack itself, Sarutobi continued, I sadly can't classify it since you drew so much attention to it with your explosions, but no one knows you used the fox's power, so that fact will remain between the two of us. Naruto nodded and exhaled a breath of relief. Sarutobi resisted the urge to sigh. It was truly fortunate that the boy accessed only a minute portion of the Kyuubi's power, and that his chakra control was as good as it was. If his control was sloppier and he pulsed that chakra around him, it would have caused a village-wide panic and resulted in Sarutobi being forced to make difficult choices. Even as it is, some people complained it was too suspicious that a freshly academy graduate managed to defeat a Chunin. Despite the fact that he nearly died in the process, Sarutobi scoffed mentally. After hearing what kind of training the boy went through from Anko, and hearing the report from Guy, Sarutobi wasn't all that surprised that the boy managed to fight a Chunin to a standstill. Especially one who hasn't been on a combat mission for 3 whole years due to being placed to a teaching post. Although Anko's influence was clearly visible in Naruto's style of fighting, it wasn't identical. The main thing that made Naruto different from Anko was his initial giant explosion. He used to herd the patrols on his position. Anko would have never signaled for help like that, and neither would the old Naruto. That move was a clear sign that Naruto was starting wizen up somewhat. He reminded Sarutobi of Minato more and more with each passing month. Break. I'm surprised, said Old Man, looking intently at the picture in his hands. I was expecting you to try to pull some sort of prank for you photo, but I guess you really have changed. It was tempting, agreed Naruto. I had thought about giving you this fake picture of the Kyuubi burning down Konoha, but I figured it was somewhat in bad taste. Quite, agreed Old Man. Just in that moment the door slammed open to reveal Konohamaru standing defiantly in the doorway. He pointed a finger at the old man. Your reign as a Hokage ends here, he proclaimed, and then he charged, stepped on his own scarf, and slammed face first into the floor. Old Man sighed. Another sneak attack, huh? Which one is it today, Konohamaru? Shut up. Naruto swore. He had been completely silent, and edging towards the door, trying to escape before the scarfed menace notices him, but as the boy shifted his gaze towards him that plan fell into the water. You! Konohamaru exclaimed. It was you, wasn't it? You tripped me. You tripped on your own scarf, said Naruto in annoyance. Liar! Admit it! You tripped me. Konohamaru continued yammering, unaware of the stony glare that Naruto was giving him, icy fury dancing across his face. He was trying to stay composed and failing. He's been through a lot recently, and the last thing he needed now was this sort of crap. Konohamaru didn't know this, but unfair accusations were something that made Naruto's blood boil. When he was little and still in the orphanage, he would constantly get blamed for anything bad that happened. Other children quickly figured out that if they tried to shift the blame on him they would be more likely to believed, so they did it constantly, out of sheer opportunism. Even if the caretakers never physically punished him, their accusations still burned deep into his soul. Why did you break the window, Naruto? What a liar you are. 3 others saw you do it. Admit it. Admit it! Konohamaru yelled. Konohamaru, intoned Naruto. What? What angered Naruto particularly about Konohamaru was that the boy was so much like he was, impatient, ignorant, inconsiderate, yet convinced he was the best at everything. Convinced that if only he's stubborn enough, aggressive enough, loud enough, that he would get some measure of respect from people around him. He was, you're such a petulant child. With a curt nod towards Old Man, Naruto trudged off towards the exit, leaving a speechless Konohamaru behind. Break. Naruto absent-mindedly rubbed his stomach, ignoring the chatter of his fellow students around him. Cesori wasn't too pleased with Naruto's request for modification of next Shiki Fujin overlay, especially since Naruto refused to discuss his reasons for it, but he honored Naruto's request. The new overlay had a switch that Naruto could activate to block out Kyuubi again if the fox doesn't honor its part of the bargain, but Naruto hoped it would not come to that. Kyuubi's threat sounded creepier than Kabuto's anatomy lessons. So, who do you think will be with whom? Naruto glanced towards Kiba, considering the question. He had been thinking about that himself while he lied in the hospital bed without nothing better to do, and he could only come to one conclusion. You, Hinata and Shino will probably be one team. Ino, Shikamaru and Shuji are definitely together. Beyond that, I don't know, answered Naruto. What makes you say that? Asked Hinata. Clan members always get placed in the same team, said Shino. We're all members of clans with abilities useful in reconnaissance, so we'll probably be grouped together as a scouting squad. As for the other group, Ino Shikacho formation is a famous in Konoha, so there is a lot of political pressure to go with what worked before. Naruto looked over at Shino with mild suspicion. He hadn't forgotten that it was Shino that originally pushed Naruto to approach Hinata, and the way Kiba suddenly showed up one day at their sparring sessions was awfully suspicious. Naruto was almost certain that Shino knew he would be placed with those two even back then, and used Naruto as a guinea pig to see what they're like. Sneaky Aburame. Naruto continued ignoring the looks he was getting from the rest of his classmates. The news that he had been attacked by Mizuki and managed to hold him off until help came spread like wildfire, and now everyone knew about it. He couldn't really tell whether people were impressed or afraid. In any case, the classroom quieted down when Iruka walked inside and began listing teams. Naruto listened intently, evaluating their chances of passing the second test in his head. None of the teams looked very remarkable. As the number of unsorted genin dwindled, Naruto groaned. There were only 2 more people he could be realistically grouped with. Team 7, Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto closed his eyes and banged his head against the table. And he spent so much effort overcoming his crush for Sakura and his obsession with Sasuke. Of all the people, why did it have to be them? Of course, it seemed obvious in retrospect. He was the container of the Kyuubi and Sasuke was the last Uchiha. So the 2 of them should be pushed forward, for political reasons if not for the fact that they were the 2 highest-ranking students in class. It was customary to have 2 boys and a girl in each team if possible, and who better for that role in there than Sakura, the highest-ranking girl in class. My condolences, said Shino. I should be saying that to you, Naruto fired back. You'll be grouped with Kiba. Hey! Protested Kiba. Order in the back row, yelled Iruka. Team 8, Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Inuzuka Kiba. Told ya, said Naruto. Yeah, said Kiba. Shut up already. Team 9 is still in circulation from last year, said Iruka, a little louder. Team 10, Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Ino, and Akamichi Chuji. As the classroom erupted into not-so-quiet conversation that Iruka desperately tried to curb through judicious use of thrown erasers, Naruto sank into silent contemplation. Team 8 and Team 10 were guaranteed to become genin, but what about his team? At first glance, they seemed to be one of those teams that were made to succeed, but Naruto suspected his team could easily be failed if their jounin instructor determines they didn't mesh well. And they definitely aren't going to mesh well. Break. Uchiha Sasuke glared balefully at his female teammate. The girl remained undeterred, telling him all sorts of things he didn't want to know. Everyone was gone, even Iruka, and his team was the only one left waiting, leaving him alone with Sakura. Of all the fangirls they could have placed in his team, it just had to be the most rabid, single-mindedly obsessed one, didn't it? For 2 hours now the girl has been trying to worm her way into his skin in the most blatant manner possible, through ass-kissing. No, he wasn't sweet. Aside from his fangirls, no one else could stand him. There were the sensible ones, of course, since getting people to avoid him was the whole point of acting the way he did. He didn't have time for friends, not with his brother still on the loose. He deep-breathed to calm himself, ignoring Sakura's inquiries into his health. Sasuke glanced at his other teammate. What was that blonde idiot doing that he was so quiet? Naruto was reading a book. He frowned. The blonde spent the first half of their education academy goofing off, being a nuisance, and then suddenly took things seriously and eventually caught up to him as the second-ranked student in the class. Naruto was the only person who could rival him in accuracy, and his taijutsu wasn't too shabby either. He was hopeless in academics, but written tests were a joke, so Sasuke didn't take it as a strike against the blonde. Realistically speaking, Naruto was the best he could hope for. As long as the blonde gets out of his way like he did so far, he'll be bearable. Fortunately, the blonde seemed to have outgrown his obsession with challenging Sasuke. Sasuke had to admit that deep down, some part of him was sorry that the blonde gave up on him. But he knew it was for the best. He was an avenger, his life already forfeit on the altar of blood and tears, and anyone who gets too close will only get sucked in and suffer with him. But he was getting off track. The thing was, even with all the changes he went through, Naruto was never a very patient person. Of the 3 of them, Sasuke would expect Naruto to be the first one to blow up in this situation. Could he have misjudged the blonde? Maybe it was all a front to fool people, and the real Naruto was someone far more capable and calculated. Yelled Naruto suddenly, flapping his hands through the air and startling Sasuke and Sakura. Where the hell is he? Where the hell is he? Iruka said he'll be a little late. A little is 15 minutes, not 2 fucking hours. This is absolutely ridiculous, or not. Naruto! Yelled Sakura back. Stop acting like an idiot. I'm sure our sensei has a good reason for being late. Naruto gave her a disdainful look. Sasuke would give it 8 out of 10. It could still use some work to properly convey how insignificant the target is to him. What? Demanded Sakura. How would you know whether he has a good reason or not, Sakura? Asked Naruto. For all you know, he could be wasting our time simply because he's an asshole. He's a jounin, she said, her voice laced with annoyance. She seemed to think merely pointing out his rank was enough to imply tendency towards responsibility. And it's not like you have anything better to do. There are only 2 things ever on your mind, ramen and your delusion of becoming Hokage. Naruto gave her a smile of amused superiority, like a master pleased that his dog did a particularly clever trick. Sasuke memorized the expression for later use. That means my interests are more diverse than yours, said Naruto. The only thing on your mind at any given moment is Sasuke. That's probably why you don't mind wasting away for hours in an empty classroom. I bet all you do at home is stare at the poster of Sasuke in your bedroom, anyway. Sakura rose from her seat, her face burning, and stomped off in Naruto's direction. No way! Yelled Naruto as he rose so he can defend himself more effectively. You have a poster of Sasuke in your bedroom. Sasuke shook his head silently. They all do. They all do. On the bright side, he just found a use for Naruto, Sakura repellent. As long as Naruto antagonizes her, she'll be too busy pummeling him to bother with him. He wondered how much money it would take to get Naruto to piss her off as much as possible. Yo! Sakura stopped choking Naruto, and all 3 looked at a strange man that was undoubtedly their jounin sensei. Sasuke was impressed that the man managed to enter the room without him noticing. And he looked very strange. Strange usually meant powerful in the ninja world. Things that stick up either get tough or hammered down. Aren't you a little too young for that? Asked the man, looking at Naruto and Sakura. Sasuke shifted his attention to his teammates. Sakura forced Naruto on the table as she choked him and threw one knee over his waist to keep him from struggling and get a better grip. The resulting pose was curious. When Sakura understood what the one-eyed man implied, she jumped back as if from hot coals, wiping her hands on her sides for good measure. It's not like that, Sakura stammered. I was just choking him, the one-eyed man smiled. You could tell because his one visible eye crinkled in amusement. Oh, kinky. Anyway, meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. As much as Sasuke was tempted to enjoy Sakura's obvious distress for as long as possible, he rose and hurried up on the roof, his 2 teammates trailing behind him. Surprisingly, Sakura didn't try to blame Naruto for all this. Sasuke attributed it to her being shell-shocked. She probably never expected such a reaction from their jounin sensei, and now didn't know what to think. He had noticed, as much as he tried not to notice anything about Sakura, that she had great faith in authority figures and took everything they said at face value. Before they got to the roof, however, Sakura had recovered enough to give a vicious blow to the back of Naruto's head. Alright, since this is our first meeting, a little introduction is in order, said the man. Tell me your names, dreams, hobbies, likes and dislikes, something in that vein. Why don't you go first, sensei? Said Sakura sweetly. To show us how it's done. My name is Hatake Kakashi. My dreams are not of your business. You're too young to know about my hobbies. I like some things and dislike some others. All you told us is your name, protested Sakura. Kakashi shrugged. Hatake Kakashi, said Naruto. Also known as the copycat ninja and the 1000 Kakashi. An elite jounin of Konoha, rumored to know over 1,000 techniques. Student of the Yondaime, and the only non-Uchiha possessing the Sharingan. Silence descended upon the sense. Sasuke's mind worked furiously on the part about Kakashi possessing the Sharingan. The way he wore his forehead protector, could it be? Wow, said Kakashi carefully. I didn't know I was so famous. You'd be surprised, said Naruto. Well, anyway, said Kakashi, waving his arm dismissively. Onward with introductions. Since the orange eyesore spoke up first, why don't we start with him? Sasuke snorted. If he thinks Naruto is an eyesore now, what would he have said if the blonde was still wearing that jumpsuit? My name is Uzumaki Naruto. My dream is to become Hokage. My hobby is gardening. I like hanging out with my friends and ramen. I hate waiting for people and making people wait. Kakashi chuckled at the last part, like it was a good joke. Okay, it's your turn now, Pinkette. Sakura seemed pissed at her new nickname but didn't protest. Instead, she took a deep breath and started her introduction. If you can call it as such. It was basically a long version of My Life as Sasuke, which, incidentally, was the name of the poem some fangirl left under his desk a few months ago. If Itachi's betrayal hadn't turned him into a social recluse already, that thing would have. You're next, brooding one, said Kakashi, pointing at Sasuke. Sasuke gave Kakashi his customary glare. He wasn't brooding, he was just being an ass. There was a difference, damn it. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I like very few things and dislike almost everything else. My hobby is training. I don't have a dream, more like an ambition, to rebuild my clan and to... The images of his family being cut down briefly flashed before his eyes. Their purpose was for me to measure myself against them. Foolish little brother. Kill a certain man, finished Sasuke. Kakashi inhaled heavily, and both of Sasuke's teammates looked at him curiously. For a moment he hoped Sakura was freaked out by this, but then his eyes glazed over and Sasuke knew it only made him more awesome in her eyes. Well then, now that we've gotten to know one another, I'll tell you about your test for becoming a genin, began Kakashi. Break. Normally, Hatake Kakashi doesn't read the files of genin candidates that come his way. Academy reports tend to be unreliable, to the point where he can make superior judgments from mere 5 minutes of observation or so. Not to mention that it's somewhat of a waste to expend energy to get to know these kids when he will almost certainly fail them anyway. After meeting Team 7 he actually read their files. Sasuke's one was gushing with praise to the point of unprofessionalism, so much so that Kakashi wondered whether it was Sakura who wrote it. And speaking of the girl, her file was positive but made no mention of her obvious obsession with the Uchiha prodigy, instead praising the girl's attentiveness and bright mind. And Naruto's file was a total crock. The file was clearly written by someone who didn't like Naruto. The file was thick, with the complaints filed against the boy placed at the front and the final assessment a long-winded diatribe filled with negative comments. It didn't escape Kakashi's attention that the assessment focused on the boy's attitude and meager initial potential and avoided mentioning his skills. Kakashi had seen the way the boy moved, and had heard about the Mizuki incident. Who hasn't? So it was curious that the writer didn't mention how skilled the boy was. Kakashi flipped through the pages of the assessment, scanning the content. Sure enough, he found the boy's scores on page 7, unobtrusively hidden right in the middle of the document. He was a second-place student, right after the Uchiha. Though the information in the files were useless, the manner in which it was presented told Kakashi a great deal about the 3 genin. A great deal indeed. Failing this particular team would have serious consequences. He now understood why the aging Hokage remarked to him that both Sasuke and Naruto were frustrated with the academy environment, and that Sakura had perhaps taken too much liking to it. All 3 held great potential, but their growth was stunted while they remained academy students. Sasuke because he had nothing to learn there, Naruto because the instructors were working against him, and Sakura because she was losing sight of what being a ninja was all about without it being shoved into her face. If those 3 are sent back at the academy, well, it probably won't end well. But did this make Kakashi obliged to pass them? Theoretically no, but practically speaking he would come under heavy criticism if he failed them. Individually, all 3 of them were prime material for a genin, so sending them back because they can't work as a team might be seen as skirting responsibility. All 3 of them had powerful political forces backing them, even Sakura. As a top student of civilian background, she was a poster child for Konoha's initiative to coax more civilians to send their children in the academy to revitalize the variety of graduating genin. All sorts of concessions were made to make the academy program more palatable to civilians, many of them a bad idea in Kakashi's opinion, and if the biggest success of this program doesn't succeed, a lot of people will end up with an egg on their face, which will cause them to question Kakashi's judgment, if for nothing else than to save their reputation. And that was just Sakura. The last Uchiha and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had even more powerful forces arrayed behind them. Kakashi thought about this as he walked towards Training Ground 7. It didn't feel right to give in to political pressures. He was the one that will have to deal with them, after all. As he was approaching the place, he came to a decision. He would test them like he intended to, and the outcome would determine if they pass. But it would not be the bell test. Not only was he aware that many ninja considered that test unfair, which would give people questioning his judgment firmer position, but it may very well be that Naruto knew about that test already. After all, the blonde seemed to know a great deal about him, and the bell test was fairly famous as well. No, he had a better idea. He would do the direct approach. As he approached, he saw all 3 sitting on the ground, eating apples. One of them must have brought them just in case. It was just as well. Now no one could complain they failed just because they were hungry. Yo, you're late, screeched the pink one. By 3 hours, added the blonde calmly, but there was a definite annoyance in his voice. Well anyway, if you're done wasting time, let me explain the rules of the test. The 3 potential genin glared at his implication that they were the ones wasting time, and he smiled behind his mask before speaking up again. He pulled out a bell. "This is a bell," he said with amusement. "You three have until noon to get this bell off of me by any means necessary. This is meant to test your teamwork, I repeat, teamwork. Teamwork. None of you can handle me alone, so only by working together and giving it your all will you have a chance to succeed. If any one of you gets the bell, you all pass. If none of you do, you all fail. Follow me so far?" Kakashi nodded to himself. He just handed them a solution of a silver platter. He didn't actually expect them to get the bell, but as long as they show actual teamwork in their attempt, they pass. The threat was there simply an added motivation, and if they failed to show any teamwork, even after being explicitly told this is what he's looking for and under the impression they'll get sent back for failing, well, no one could fault him for failing them in that event. He'll have an ironclad case that they were completely unsuited as a team. He's a genius. The three of them exchanged uneasy glances and nodded. "All right," said Kakashi. "Come at me then." Wordlessly, Sasuke and Naruto circled him until they were positioned on his flanks, while Sakura drew a kunai, apparently opting to be their long-range support. Kakashi impatiently looked at his watch, trying to get the rise of them, and succeeding. Sakura let loose a kunai at him and both boys charged as he leaned to the side to dodge it, hoping to catch him off guard. They both had very good taijutsu, though Sasuke was faster and more skilled. If they actually attacked in tandem, he'd be hard-pressed to deal with them without using any dangerous moves. But as it is, they were just two enemies that attacked with no regard for what the other was doing. Sakura was standing back, unable to get a clear hit because either Sasuke or Naruto tried to give her an opening, expecting her to find a one on her own. Or maybe they just plain forgot about her. In any case, Sakura herself seemed busier gawking at Sasuke than really looking for openings. Finally, the Uchiha seemed to have had enough and stood back, flipping through a bunch of seals. Kakashi's visible eye widened just slightly. He had no idea the boy could do that sort of technique. Unfortunately, Sasuke seemed oblivious to the fact that Naruto was right next to Kakashi and Naruto had no way of knowing what the Uchiha was planning. The look of shock when he saw the fireballs speeding towards him was obvious. Kakashi had little trouble dodging the fireball, but Naruto wasn't as lucky. When the smoke cleared, Naruto was holding a badly singed arm, his teeth clenching in an attempt to hold back a scream of pain. Kakashi was actually rather impressed by the lucidity with which the blonde scrambled to his feet and back in a battle stance. It took a lot of willpower to get back up and keep fighting after being on a receiving end of something like that. Most of the academy graduates would be rolling on the ground, screaming in pain. "What the hell, Sasuke?" protested Naruto through clenched teeth. "You're getting in the way, dope," the Uchiha said coldly. "Quit cramping Sasuke's style, Naruto," yelled Sakura from the side. Kakashi sighed. He had never seen a team with worse teamwork than this. They weren't just bad, they were awful in a way that required active effort. It was like they were deliberately sabotaging themselves. "You leave me no choice," said Kakashi. He watched them tense up as he reached into his belt. He savored their confusion when he pulled out his Aika and started reading it, and couldn't help but giggle when he felt their confusion turn into anger. Though to them it probably seemed he was giggling at something in the book. "You," began Sasuke, clenching his fists. "You think you can take me that lightly, HM?" said Kakashi. "Did you said something?" "I was just coming to the best part, you see, the one where Taka finds out about the twins and—" Kakashi struggled to keep his face in an innocent expression as Sasuke's wrath approached a boiling point. Just as the dark boy was about to charge at him, Naruto spoke. "Sasuke, wait," said Naruto calmly. "I have an idea," Sasuke scoffed. "That would be a first." "Yes, well, we both know the frontal assault isn't going to work. He's just trying to rile you up until you do something stupid. And succeeding, I might add." "Do you have an idea?" Sasuke remained silent, glaring at Naruto but obviously calming down. "What does it cost you to go along?" tried Naruto again. "If this fails, you can just call me dope like always and try it your way. It won't take long, I promise." Sasuke eyed him suspiciously. "What do you have?" Naruto brought his hand to his burned side and it began to glow. As Naruto waved his glowing hand over the burn, flesh healed itself in its wake. Kakashi inhaled slightly. The boy knew medical techniques? How curious. "Much better," said Naruto, trying out his healed arm before bringing both of his palms together in preparation of a seal sequence. "Sasuke, Sakura, take positions and be ready to grab the bell when you see an opening. I'm going to distract Kakashi." Kakashi couldn't help but chuckle. The blonde, though he would be so easy. "Guys," he began, obvious amusement in his voice. "I don't know if you noticed, but I'm still here and listening to everything." "It won't do you any good," said Naruto. "Go back to reading your little book." Sasuke, Sakura, remember to focus on the bell and nothing but the bell. Under no circumstances should you pay attention to my actions. Ready? Blonde's two teammates nodded, shifting uncomfortably in place. Okay, Kakashi was now officially interested. He couldn't help but discreetly keep an eye on the blonde as he brought his hands together and started performing the clone jutsu. A clone jutsu? What on earth did he hope to achieve with a? Two poofs of smoke signaled the creation of two clones, but when the smoke cleared, Kakashi! Guy shouted. Reading such unsightly literature in front of your students is most unyouthful. I will not stand for such behavior from my springtime rival, Guy-sensei! Guy-sensei! Shouted Guy's smaller clone. I can feel my fires of youth draining away just by looking at him. I will run 200 laps around Konoha to atone myself. My rival! Shouted Guy again, pointing at Kakashi empathically. Look what you've done! Even my most youthful student has had his fires dimmed by your actions. What have you got to say for yourself? Kakashi was staring at the sight with disbelief. His mind still not working properly. All he could say was, "What? There's that hip attitude again," shouted Guy. As expected from my rival. Mark my words, Kakashi, one day I'll defeat you. Come, Lee. We must get back to our training. We will do 500 extra push-ups to make up for this. Guy-sensei, your youthfulness has relit the fire in my veins. Lee, Guy-sensei. Kakashi was suddenly brought out of his daze. Something was off here. Guy and his student were hugging each other, but where was the sunset genjutsu? The horror isn't complete without it. And then he suddenly realized what was happening and quickly moved to protect the bell, only to find it long gone. Images of Guy and his students poofed out of existence, and Kakashi found the bell in Sakura's hand. Both Sasuke and Sakura had decided to satisfy their curiosity after getting the bell and received a face full of Guy for their punishment. Kakashi couldn't help but empathize for their shell-shocked expressions. They were far too young to be exposed to something like that. He turned to Naruto. That was unexpected. I didn't know you met Guy. Oh, but he's the reason I know so much about you, said Naruto with a grin. I was assigned a week-long training session with him and Lee as punishment. He spoke often about his springtime rival. Kakashi's eye twitched. All right, first rule of being in my team, no Guy impression. Ever. If you ever call me springtime rival again, I'll give you training so intense even Guy would cringe. The blonde gulped and nodded. Does that mean we pass? Sakura asked hopefully. Kakashi turned towards the girl. Well, you did get the bell, even if your method was cruel and unusual. I'm a man of my word, my tardiness notwithstanding. So yes. Congratulations, you passed the test. You're not officially genin of Konoha. Even Sasuke smiled at this. Kakashi sighed. For good or bad, his life just got a hell of a lot more interesting. Break. Kurenai was pleased. Very pleased, in fact. Her team had passed with flying colors, showing both skill and admirable teamwork. At first she assumed Shino and Kiba would get off on a wrong foot due to their clashing personalities and that getting Hinata to open up would be a slow and difficult process. But it wasn't so. Shino and Kiba did bicker, but it was more casual and harmless than any true hostility. Hinata, while quiet and subdued, was forthcoming enough not to hinder the team. It seems the Academy files had misled her. Who was writing those reports anyway? But it was a positive surprise, so no harm done. Cautionary reports were better than too optimistic ones. But at the same time Kurenai could just tell that something was off there. Specifically, Shino and Hinata were clearly close friends while Kiba was more like a coworker to them. They worked with him, but there was a layer of communication that he was not privy to. As Kurenai congratulated them for passing, Kiba gave a shout of joy, accompanied by Akamaru's barking, but the other two had a more subdued reaction. When she dismissed them, Hinata looked at Shino in an unspoken question and he nodded. They turned to leave. It didn't sit right with Kurenai. She knew that she was probably overreacting, but she knew good teams ruined over less. Just because Kiba is too dense right now to notice they're treating him like an outsider doesn't mean he'll always be. He seemed like the sort of person to be upset by it too. Shino, she called, causing the bespectacled boy to turn towards her. Hinata mirrored his move. Maybe they were an item? I was just wondering where you're going. Kiba perked up at this. Kurenai swore inwardly. Sometimes she forgets that Inuzuka had both good noses and good hearing. She should have done it after he left. We're off to see how Naruto did, chimed in Hinata immediately, her words trailing off in a whisper. She raised an eyebrow. Naruto? The prankster? He's a close friend of ours, clarified Shino. Well, at least they're not hiding their intentions. That's a good sign. He passed, said Kiba dismissively. Even if his sensei fails them, he'll still find a way to graduate. It's Naruto. If you nailed down the doors and windows, he'll just bust through the walls. Now this was certainly interesting. She didn't think Kiba had compliments for anyone, especially not one his peers. And this was definitely a compliment towards Naruto when coming from someone like Kiba. Her interest was definitely intrigued. She studied the files of all students, of course, and Naruto's. Well, she didn't read all of it, since there was so much in it, but the representative example she examined did not paint a pretty picture. But apparently her team did not seem to think so. She didn't have to file her report till the evening, so, tell you what, said Kurenai. Why don't we all visit him together? I'm interested in meeting him myself. Contrary to what she expected, Shino and Hinata were not reluctant. If anything, Hinata seemed pleased at the turn of events. Shino just nodded and led the way. Apparently he was the only one who had been to Naruto's place. Listening to Kiba's loud boasting, she found that he and Naruto fought regularly while in academy. Or maybe it was sparring? Kiba claimed he won every time, but Shino corrected him, saying the result was in Naruto's favor in the last few months leading up to the qualification exam. The specified time period caught Kurenai's attention. Shino would not have put it there if it was not important somehow. It implied discontinuous advancement of Naruto's abilities over time. Very curious, as they got closer to Naruto's place of residence, they entered the poorer rundown district full of trash-lined alleys and buildings that looked like they need just one good shove to topple over. When they eventually approached Naruto's apartment building, they found a structure only marginally better preserved than others. Kiba had obvious disbelief on his face, eyeing the place with unhidden apprehension. Hinata, however, seemed unconcerned. In fact, Kurenai was certain she had been here before, despite Shino's claims that he was the only one to come here. She didn't think Shino lied. He'd just keep silent if he didn't want to say something, so that meant that Hinata had some secrets of her own regarding the boy. After an uneventful climb up the stairs, Kiba complained about the smell, claiming that there was a dead cat somewhere around. Kurenai knocked at the door of Uzumaki Naruto. Even though she heard a lot of the stories about the boy, mostly about his pranks, this was the first time she was going to see him. Him being the container for the Kyuubi did not matter to her, but that just meant she wasn't going to treat him differently than she would anyone else. She had no intention of discounting his flaws when judging him. He was not abused, and didn't even know about his prisoner. He wasn't the only orphan aspiring to be a ninja, and none of those had his famous relationship with the Hokage. The door opened and a surprised boy locked eyes with Kurenai. Naruto was blonde, much like Yandame was, with vibrant blue eyes and whisker marks on his cheeks. She had heard he goes around in an orange jumpsuit, but right now he was wearing loose black pants and a white t-shirt with a red spiral painted in the middle of his chest. The fact that he was walking barefooted around the house made Kurenai want to scold him, but she figured that would put him on the defensive necessarily. He said. Hi. Come on in, I guess. Kurenai entered the place first, her students trailing behind her, scanning the room like a hawk. She knew there was no danger per se, but she had a habit of studying unfamiliar surroundings whenever she entered them. It was surprisingly clean, especially for a home where a teenage boy lives alone, and there was a row of potted plants by the window. Before she could take in any more detail, a familiar head poked around the kitchen door frame and her composure was smashed to pieces. Yuhi! Anko screamed, throwing herself at Kurenai. Well, who'd guess I'd be meeting you here? Naruto never mentioned knowing you. Kurenai just stood there, confused. She expected a lot of things, but this wasn't one of them. She snatched Anko by her arm and dragged her off into the kitchen, leaving her students with Naruto. She slammed the door shut. Anko, what the hell are you doing here? I just came to congratulate Naruto on becoming a genin, said Anko. And why is that? Why would you visit a random genin too? He's my pupil Yuhi, I told you that, remember? Kurenai stopped for a second to think. She was pretty sure Anko never told her something like this, but, wait, that academy student Hokage forbid you from teaching? The one you got drunk over a while back? Anko grinned. See? I knew you'd remember. Kurenai rubbed her face. At least she now knew what possessed Anko to take on a student back then. She probably sympathized Naruto for all the stigma of the civilians, and some ninja attached to him. She didn't really want to know how she talked Naruto into accepting her as a teacher, though threats and force were probably involved, since Hokage had to become involved. So why are you breaking Hokage's order then? Asked Kurenai finally. I'm not breaking anything, pouted Anko. He forbid me from teaching him. We can still hang out like buddies. Oh Cammy, what have you been doing to the poor child? Nothing, Anko. Really? See, I even brought him a gift, said Anko, pointing to the bottle of sake on the kitchen table. Kurenai shot her an annoyed look. I can't believe this. You've been torturing the poor boy so much he had to complain to the Hokage about it, and now… She stopped as Anko's face darkened suddenly. Is that what everyone thinks? She asked quietly. This gave her pause. Anko did get pretty drunk that day. It obviously meant a lot to her. It seemed like a reasonable conclusion considering what I heard, said Kurenai. Then why did Naruto repaint Hokage's tower into a giant dick 2 days later? Asked Anko, opening Naruto's gift and taking a sip before placing the bottle back like nothing happened. Kurenai resisted the urge to go back into the other room and beat the boy into a bloody pulp. He's the one that did that. He's the one that asked me to teach him, you know. And after I smashed my foot right into his face too. Kurenai looked at her suspiciously. So you're saying you beat the crap out of him, and he asked you to teach him? Yup, said Anko cheerfully. And you know all the crap you told me about the students not being able to handle surprise attacks during lessons? Kurenai's face twisted into a sour expression. You didn't, Anko nodded. I even played tag with him when he wouldn't listen. Kurenai wanted to start hitting her head into the wall. Anko, you could have killed him. He's just a genin. He was still an academy student then, corrected Anko. Oh, that makes it so much better. If he didn't complain, well, not much anyway. I don't see why you're so upset. He even bought me dangos for the privilege. Kurenai narrowed her eyes. Considering how much Anko eats of that stuff. I can't believe you. You've been taking advantage of a 12-year-old boy. He was 11 at the time, again corrected Anko. Kurenai would have continued chewing her out if Naruto didn't choose that moment to open the door and stroll in. She wasn't taking advantage of me, remarked Naruto while he removed 4 glasses out of the shelf and poured orange juice into them. She was giving me instructions, and was quite generous about it too. Any other private instructor would have asked for a fortune for their services, but all she wanted was some dango and sake once a week. He gave Kurenai 1 glass and motioned her 3 students to sit around the table where their glasses were waiting for them. Sake? Asked Kurenai. Well, I needed something to wash down all those dangos, elaborated Anko. Kurenai sighed. Her students were all seated around the table, so she would continue that discussion with Anko some other time. Well, Anko already told me Naruto passed Kakashi's exam. I presume he told you the same? They all nodded. Using a clone disguised in tomato guy was a truly innovative and terrifying tactic, said Shino calmly. Kurenai looked at the boy incredulously. He had used… Oh man, Yuhi, you have to hear this. Naruto, tell her what happened. Kurenai listened to Naruto's tale with rapt attention. The fact that Kakashi was 3 hours late to the test made her teeth grind, remembering all the meetings where she had to wait for that insufferable man to finally show up. Their test was clearly a heavily modified version of the infamous bell test, a far easier one, but according to Naruto they were failing it regardless. That is, until he performed his guy-inspired distraction to let his teammates snatch the bell away from the masked pervert. Overall, it made her feel good about her team that she didn't have to deal with someone as dysfunctional as the 3 genin of Team 7 were. What caught her attention most, however, was that Naruto was nothing like his academy report claimed. He didn't exaggerate things, wasn't insufferably loud, and didn't appear to be overtly disrespectful. Seeing no reason not to, she decided to ask the boy about it. She noticed that Hinata was angered by Academy assessment of Naruto, while Kiba just seemed surprised. What? Asked Kiba incredulously. Are you sure you didn't get an old file by mistake? Naruto hasn't been like that for, about a year? He was never that bad, stated Hinata firmly. Naruto sighed. Well, I did do a lot of pranks, and I did disrupt the class a lot, but anyway, I don't like to talk about that topic. Why not? Asked Kurenai curiously. Naruto was clearly an important factor in the lives of her genin, and she wanted to know as much as she could about him. Naruto looked at the bottle of sake on the table, lost in though for a few seconds. When I was 6 years old, I moved out of the orphanage into this apartment, began Naruto. Apart from monthly visits from the Hokage and occasional conversation with the owners of Ichiraku ramen stand, I lived completely alone. I made my own food, bought my own clothes, and otherwise did everything without adult guidance. As a consequence, some of my choices proved to be rather questionable. There are things that seem self-evident to a 6-year-old that actually aren't. That was an understatement. Kurenai couldn't quite understand what the Hokage was thinking when he allowed something like that. A 6-year-old living alone. As a consequence, When I started attending the academy, I lacked certain crucial skills that everyone took for granted. Things that the instructors assumed everyone knew. Since the instructors already disliked me, and since my questions were something they felt I should already know, they ignored me. I didn't like that. I doubt anyone likes to be ignored. In any case, unless I made a big enough disturbance, the instructors tended to overlook me when I wanted to ask a question or needed help. Accidentally, of course. As my bids for attention intensified, I lost sight of why I wanted the instructors to notice me in the first place. Gaining people's attention became the end in of itself. And since I never learned the basics, everything the academy was teaching went over my head. Anyway, to make the long story short, it took me a while till I realized I'd have to seek help from outside sources to get anything done. Kurenai clearly saw the boy glance towards Anko when he mentioned outside sources, but she could see on Anko's face that her friend found something off about the story. In any case, Kurenai didn't miss the subtext of Naruto's tale. Even if he wasn't physically abused, there are still ways in which being a Jinchuriki crippled his growth. She honestly never would have guessed the situation to be like this. After all those tales about the boy's connection with the Hokage, it just seemed implausible that he had been living in that sort of conditions. "I don't get it," said Kiba. "Why did you move out of the orphanage at age 6? Why did you live alone all this time, and in a dump like this no less? Why did the instructors dislike you? It just doesn't make any sense." Kurenai inhaled slightly. This could be rather inconvenient. Before she could defuse the situation, Naruto spoke up again. "It's simple really," said Naruto. "It's because I'm the container of the nine-tailed fox." Absolute silence descended upon the room. Kurenai couldn't help but stare at the boy wild-eyed. He knew! And he said it so casually, too. After quickly regaining her senses, she realized that neither Shino nor Hinata had any reaction to this. Well, Shino she could understand, but Hinata? Anko just watched things in uncharacteristic seriousness, and Kiba. What? Asked Kiba. "I said I'm the container of the Kyuubi," repeated Naruto. "The story about the Yondaime killing it is a story the adults tell children because Old Man decreed no one is allowed to tell the truth. Except for me and him, that is. In any case, the truth is this: Yondaime couldn't kill the Kyuubi, because the bijou cannot be killed. Instead he sealed it into a newborn baby orphan, that is to say, me, and the sealing took his life in the process." Naruto got up and rolled up his shirt, only to reveal a large seal springing to life before their eyes. Kurenai had never actually seen the seal, but now that she had, she couldn't help but feel impressed with Yondaime's mastery of sealing arts. She didn't know anything about seals, but it looked incredibly complex. "Shino and Hinata already know," said Naruto. "They've known for a while. I'm telling you this, Kiba, because over the recent months we have become friends of sorts. If you choose to avoid me from now on, I will not take it against you. Know, however, that the knowledge of my tenant is an S-class secret of Konoha, and you are not allowed to spread this information around. On the pain of death." Kiba slumped into the chair, staring blankly into the distance. "Wow," he said finally. "I never would have guessed." "Of course not," said Naruto with a smirk. "You're too dense for that," Kiba snorted. "TCH, don't you get cocky on me, Naruto. Kyuubi or no Kyuubi, you're still no match for me and Akamaru. As for your earlier question, fuck you. Who do you think I am, giving up on my rival over something like that?" Kurenai breathed a sigh of relief. Uzumaki Naruto truly was the most surprising genin she ever met. Chapter 7 Secrets. "Babysitting?" asked Sakura with just a tiny trace of incredulity. Somehow she expected her first mission to be more important. The Hokage nodded, clearly amused by Team 7's reactions. "This morning you'll be babysitting my grandson." "Oh," said Sakura, brightening immediately. "The Hokage's grandson? Well, that was important. It will be an honor." "Like hell it will," said Naruto in a cranky, hostile voice, startling Sakura. The blonde rarely talked in that tone, and never to her. Before she could recover and punish him, however, Kakashi beat her to it. "Naruto," Kakashi warned. "Show some respect to Hokage." But the Hokage just laughed. "Don't worry, Kakashi. Naruto is just talking that way because he knows what Konohamaru is like." Sakura looked at Naruto suspiciously. He knew Hokage's grandson? And what did the Hokage mean by that? Could the Hokage's grandson really be bad enough to make Naruto hate him? Naruto was a happy-go-lucky idiot that liked everyone. He just didn't have the depth of personality to actively dislike people, unlike her Sasuke-kun. Sasuke-kun, old man, I don't remember doing anything to deserve this," said Naruto. Sakura snapped out of her fantasy. "Old man!" she screeched, preparing to deliver a beating to the blonde. What kind of language is that to address? Sakura, please, the Hokage said. Naruto and I know each other ever since he was a little kid. He knows how to be respectful when it's needed. Right, Naruto? Of course, Hokage-sama, said Naruto in a mock formal voice. Sakura rolled her eyes but gave up on her quest of education the blonde. If the Hokage doesn't want to pursue the issue, why should she? Well, she kind of wanted to anyway, but, to answer your earlier question, Naruto, Hokage said, I'm giving this mission to your team precisely because you're in it. I have an important diplomatic meeting today, and Konohamaru has an uncanny tendency to bother me at the most sensitive of times. And as strange as it may sound, you're the only one who can keep him in line. Me? Asked Naruto suspiciously. Oh yes, Hokage nodded. After your last confrontation with him in my office, Konohamaru stopped bothering me for 2 whole days. I've yet to see anyone else affect Konohamaru that strongly after such a brief verbal exchange. After seeing that display, I know that this mission will be a piece of cake to you, especially since you now have 2 very capable teammates to help you. I'm counting on you 3 to let me hold a meeting without interruptions. If Konohamaru slips through your fingers and ruins this, I'll turn this mission into a regular occurrence. Is that understood? Naruto actually paled at the threat and said yes, Hokage-sama, without a trace of mockery. Sakura couldn't help but swallow heavily herself. The brat couldn't be that bad, couldn't he? She glanced at Sasuke, who looked totally unconcerned by the whole exchange. She brightened immediately. If Sasuke wasn't concerned, then she shouldn't be either. Break. Naruto watched as Sasuke furiously rubbed paint out of his face. It should be funny, really, but after spending a full hour chasing after Konohamaru because the kid managed to incapacitate his teammates, he didn't feel much like laughing. The tied and gagged bundle on the ground in front of Naruto squirmed and murmured, and Naruto resisted the urge to kick Konohamaru in the ribs. Sasuke was actually rather good at evading Konohamaru's machinations, but the sheer number of them and their relatively unconventional nature ensured that he got ensnared into some. The unceasing onslaught made Sasuke angry, and thus sloppy. If Konohamaru were someone that Sasuke could kill or beat up to make him stop, the Uchiha could leave this mission unscathed, but not like this. Moderately clean, Sasuke just shot a glare at Naruto and his prisoner before walking away. Naruto huffed, so he has to guard Konohamaru on his own. What good are teammates if they don't help you when you need help? Naruto looked around. Sakura was still in the house, trying to wash off the itching powder Konohamaru dumped onto her back. The kid got her on his first try, too. He would be getting no help from her, and he wouldn't feel safe leaving Konohamaru under her guard. Kakashi did nothing to help them, of course. He was always around, reading his porn and giggling like he has no worry in the world, even as Naruto desperately chased after Konohamaru. Even now he was on a nearby branch, ignoring Naruto's scrutinizing gaze. You know what? Screw this, said Naruto, untying Konohamaru, who immediately scrambled on his feet and moved towards a seated Naruto, glaring at him and invading his personal space. Naruto yawned. I hate you, said Konohamaru finally. Oh, join the club, said Naruto in a tired voice. Why did you free me? Asked Konohamaru. I could run away again. If you do, I'll just use poison to knock you out for the rest of the day, said Naruto crankily. How does that sound? That's no way to treat the next Hokage. Konohamaru screamed. Naruto sighed. If he was anything like the old Naruto, there was no way to make Konohamaru see what he's doing wrong. Not by talking anyway. Prove it, said Naruto. Huh, prove you're a worthy candidate for a Hokage, and I will treat you like one, said Naruto. Learn until your eyes get blurry, practice until your hands bleed, train until you can barely breathe anymore, and then, when you feel you're ready, seek me out and defeat me in battle. Only then will I acknowledge you as anything other than an annoying brat. Ha! Konohamaru said smugly. I can beat you right now, Naruto frowned. Should he? Ah, whatever. He slowly rose to his feet and got into a battle stance. Come at me then, he said emotionlessly to the scarfed menace before him. Konohamaru grinned and charged with a battle cry, only to have Naruto evade and stomp on the scarf trailing behind him. Konohamaru collapsed on the ground, coughing and clutching his neck. Is that all? Asked Naruto. Is that everything the great Konohamaru, the next Hokage, can do against me? Konohamaru gasped. I'm not. Yes, you're definitely finished, said Naruto. If I was so inclined, I could have killed you in 12 different ways the moment you hit the ground. You lost. You don't even have the decency to admit so. Naruto turned around and started walking towards the house to gather his teammates. Where do you think you're going? shouted Konohamaru after finally managing to get back up. Our fight isn't fin. Konohamaru's defiant claim was interrupted when a kunai sliced through his cheek and embedded itself into the tree behind him. Don't make me get serious, said Naruto in a dangerous tone. Seeing as how Konohamaru was too terrified to answer, Naruto turned around again and continued on his way. Just as he was about to step into the house to search for Sakura, Konohamaru's voice sounded behind him. One day, I will defeat you, the scarf boy declared. Naruto craned his neck so Konohamaru could see his smirk. I'm looking forward to it, brat. But make sure you come only when you're ready, because I'm not holding back next time. Who knows? Maybe the kid wasn't as hopeless as Naruto thought. Break. It had been only 2 weeks since Naruto entered active service, and he was on the verge of breaking. First of all, the missions consisted of cleaning up buildings, delivering packages, assisting the teachers in the academy, collecting herbs, filing paperwork, helping in the hospital, babysitting. It wasn't exactly what Naruto had in mind when he set out to become a ninja. Secondly, he no longer had anyone to spar with. His friends had their own teams, as well as increased responsibilities to their own clans now that they were genin. Third off, his team. Just his team. They were an utter disappointment. Especially Kakashi. He expected Sasuke and Sakura to be terrible, but Kakashi's complete disinterest in his students was contemptible beyond words. He didn't train them, didn't give them any pointers, didn't even have them spar. They all showed up 2 hours after the designated time. No one was stupid enough to come at the time Kakashi specified. They did a mission, then dispersed. And that's it. Even after Naruto called Kakashi on it in front of the whole team, the man essentially just blew him off. And Naruto knew this was atypical, because he spied on dozens of other genin teams, and all of them were doing regular training with the aid of their jounin supervisor. The only team that was almost as bad was Team 10, but even they trained on occasion. Suddenly granted with a whole lot of free time and very little to do with it, Naruto found himself more and more frustrated with each passing day. Other genin were getting stronger while he remained miserable and idle. Not seeing any other solution, he turned to the one person he could always count on. He came to spend the majority of his day around Cesori, learning more advanced tricks surrounding puppeteering and studying his personality seals. More and more these lessons consisted of puppet battles between him and Cesori. There was something therapeutic in having a bunch of puppets smash each other to pieces. But even with this outlet, he couldn't help but feel resentful towards the old man for saddling with such a useless sensei, which is why he found it really hard not to kill this damn cat they were chasing. Stupid cat. This was the 3rd time they got this mission in 2 weeks. Naruto frowned, catching sight of the miserable demon. The thrice-damned animal nearly clawed his eyes out the last time he tried to catch her. Even if his medic nin training allowed him to heal the scratches, that was way too close. This time he wasn't taking any chances. The cat was in his sight, and his teammates were nowhere to be seen. He dropped in front of the animal. Instead of running, the cat charged at him, hoping to catch him off guard. Not this time. Naruto threw a pellet in front of the rapidly approaching ball of fur, which exploded into a cloud of green smoke upon impact. The cat emerged from the smoke dazed, hacking and wheezing. After a few more wobbly steps and a pitiful snarl at Naruto, it collapsed to the ground. Naruto took a breath of relief, knockout gas for the win, but that was just the easy part. He crouched down towards the cat and inspected it. It was alive and breathing, so he didn't overdose it. Not that it mattered much. If the animal died, he'd just walk away and pretend he had nothing to do with it. It was just more convenient if the cat lived. He took out a large sheet of paper thick with inscribed characters and placed the cat in the empty circle in the center of the paper. With a careful precision, he went through a string of 15 hand seals and pressed his hands to the cat's neck. The animals thrashed soundlessly in its sleep as the characters peeled themselves off the paper and seared themselves into the skin of its neck. Naruto took several deep breaths to clear the dizziness in his head. You'd think that someone with his chakra capacity would never have to worry about chakra expenditure, but sealing was extremely chakra intensive. Even a relatively simple seal like this took a lot out of him. In any case, Tora would no longer give him any trouble. The seal he placed on her was 1 part tracking seal that would allow him to locate her if they ever get this mission again, and 1 part personality seal that would make Tora completely docile once Naruto's turned it on via activation phrase. All he had to do was locate the cat through the tracking seal and speak the command word to get the animal to cooperate. He folded the now empty paper and shoved it into his pocket before picking the animal up and trudging off to find his teammates. He was a bit late to the spot where they said they would meet in regular intervals, but he figured the others would be understanding since he was basically bringing their target. If not, fuck them. Naruto! Yelled Sakura. You're late. Where? I've got Tora, said Naruto blankly. You were supposed to notify your teammates when you find the objective, said Kakashi, looking at the cat peacefully sleeping in Naruto's arms with suspicion. Why? In the end, it's always me who ends up having to capture the thing. All these two do is agitate the animal until it wants to rend the first person that approaches it to ribbons, said Naruto coldly. As you can see, capturing it alone is a lot more beneficial to my health. In any case, I've reached an understanding with the cat. I don't think it will bother us as much in the future. Sasuke snorted, and Sakura just looked at him incredulously. Well, anyway, let's deliver Tora back to its owner so we can all go home, said Kakashi. Naruto didn't say anything, opting instead to wordlessly trudge off in the direction of the Hokage's tower. He was dimly aware of the questioning gaze Kakashi was sending him from time to time, but didn't really care. His so-called sensei didn't deserve any answers, and neither did his two worthless teammates. Break. Non-saturated bounded field? Distributed mesh of activation conduits? Whiskers, what the hell is this stuff? I can't understand a single sentence of this. Naruto snatched the sealing scroll away from Ino's hands. Of course she didn't understand it. If he thought she could understand what was written there, he would have never let her take it away from him, even for a second. And why did he have to be Whiskers? He really fell low if he had to hang out with Ino for fun, but teammate was being worked to death by Kurenai and their respective clans, so they had little time for Naruto. She wasn't too bad once you get used to her, actually. Her taijutsu was certainly improving. Today she actually landed a kick on him during their sparring. It's just something I'm studying in my free time, Ino-chan, said Naruto. Oh, it's Ino-chan now, is it? She said. I thought you were a Sakura fan. Now, I'm just being friendly, not hitting on you, said Naruto with a good-natured smile. We've been talking to each other often enough to be friends, I think. And besides, I haven't felt that way towards Sakura for a long time now, Ino-chan. I thought it was obvious. I don't know about that, said Ino. I saw how she treats you. If you're not shooting for her, why do you let her treat you like dirt? It's Sakura, said Naruto, as if that explained everything. So, I don't expect her to be considerate to anyone except Sasuke, Ino huffed. As awesome as Sasuke is, that's no reason to abuse your other teammate for no reason. It's not really abuse, said Naruto. She's just being callous and rude. That sort of thing only hurts if you allow it to. Whatever, said Ino, waving the whole thing off. Naruto knew Sasuke and Sakura weren't really her favorite subjects to talk about. Not to Naruto anyway. He had no patience for fangirlish drooling over the last Uchiha, and couldn't help her patch things up with her childhood friend. Smokestack still doing nothing but playing shogi with Shikamaru? Asked Naruto. Yeah. You know, I actually used that nickname in front of him, and it surprised him like hell. I didn't know you two knew each other. Smokestack is the old man's son. When I was little, the old man would bring me home with him every now and then, and Smokestack would play with me. He was nice, but I only met him a few times, so I didn't really get attached to him in any way. I'm not really sure you could call it knowing one another. Well, he sure knew where that nickname came from, said Ino. I'd say you left an impression on him. By the way, how are the plants I gave you? 2 of them are looking good. One of them died. What? You killed one already? But Ino-chan, shut up. Tell me what you did. After an hour-long lecture from Ino about more not being always better when watering your plants, her speech slowly but surely turned into a self-pity party about how her girlfriends from the academy days didn't invite her for some event or other, and every time I talk to them they're busy with stuff. I mean busy? Seriously? We're 12-year-olds. And most of them didn't even enroll back into the academy when they were sent back. What do they really have to do all day long? Hang out with their civilian friends? Asked Naruto carefully. What? That doesn't make sense. Why with them and not with me? Becoming a ninja means becoming enmeshed in a world of secrets and conspiracies, said Naruto. This automatically isolates you from civilian population, partly because you learn things which you cannot tell your former friends, either because you're forbidden to do so or because it would put them at risk, and partly because going off on missions just takes a lot of time that would normally go into cementing your relationships with people around you. You said it yourself, Ino. They don't have much to do with their time except socialize with other people. You have your missions, stupid as they currently are, and you have your job at your family flower shop, so you're actually rather busy from their point of view. They'd have to go out of their way to maintain their ties with you, something that they don't seem to think is worth it. And don't forget that you succeeded in graduating where they failed, so there is bound to be some resentment as well. Ino clacked her tongue in annoyance. Well, aren't we an expert on human nature? I happen to be a Yamanaka, and have a ninja for a father, so I assure you I know these things better than you do. I was just complaining to get these things off my chest. You're supposed to listen and provide moral support, Whiskers. Ah, said Naruto with a wry smile. My apologies then. Anyway, as I was saying, they're all stupid and they'll regret not basking in your heavenly presence one of these days. I can tell you're being sarcastic, warned Ino. Of course you can, agreed Naruto, still grinning. You're a Yamanaka, after all. There you go again. This is your last warning, Naruto laughed, opting not to provoke her further. She wasn't much of a fighter, but if there was anything he learned about Ino, it was that she had a very long memory and could nurse a grudge. He couldn't keep his guard around her at all times, so it was best if he didn't antagonize her too much. He rose up, dusting himself off, and turned to leave. See you around, Ino. Don't kill any more plants. She called after him. He waved back without turning and kept walking away. Break. Kakashi sighed heavily, took a moment to collect his thoughts, and then entered the Hokage's office. Sarutobi was sitting behind his desk, waiting for him with an air of calm. Without waiting for any prompting, Kakashi slumped down in the chair facing the man and waited. So Kakashi, said Sarutobi while refilling his pipe, you've been with your team for 2 months now. What do you think? Kakashi mulled things around his head, trying to decide exactly what to say. They are a disaster, said Kakashi finally. You passed them, Sarutobi sighed. Would I have been allowed to fail them? You could have. It would have been in character with your previous behavior, Kakashi sighed. Maybe. They did pass the bell test. Sort of. And I admit I was somewhat reminded of my own team when looking at their academy profiles, and that it influenced my decision somewhat, but they weren't exactly the second coming of your team, concluded Sarutobi. Right. Naruto is a lot more withdrawn than the records indicated, Sasuke is unwilling to cooperate with anyone, and Sakura's infatuation with Sasuke is bordering on pathological. They're all good ninja in their own way, just not in the correct formation. Why were those three put together again? Sarutobi looked Kakashi kindly, as if apologizing for putting him into such a situation. What about their skills? Asked Sarutobi, changing the subject. Sasuke is definitely the frontline type. Extremely gifted at taijutsu, very accurate, and has an array of fire techniques to use. Naruto is the reconnaissance type. Adept at surveying the terrain and gathering information, has downright frightening situational awareness, and is surprisingly good at tracking. He can find Tora in 10 minutes flat, somehow. As for Sakura, she has perfect chakra control, and she's surprisingly shrewd when Sasuke isn't around. I'm guessing she'd be great at genjutsu. The Hokage continued looking at Kakashi for several seconds before speaking. But, dear Kami, said Kakashi, where do I even start? Sasuke doesn't want to learn anything except direct combat skills. Sakura cares more about Sasuke's opinions than mine, and Naruto is hiding his abilities from me. Why couldn't I have gotten a normal team like Asuma did? Sarutobi smiled. Naruto? Hiding? That'll be a day. He couldn't keep a secret if. You're wrong, stated Kakashi calmly. The boy appears direct, but he is in fact studiously avoiding revealing his strengths. Several times now he has pulled previously unknown abilities when the situation called for it without batting an eye. Do you know he knows how to use medical techniques? The look of surprise on Sarutobi's face told Kakashi that no, he didn't. That he has several original techniques based off Academy ones? Continued Kakashi. That he can make storage scrolls? That he is skilled at accounting and business correspondence? The Hokage frowned. But, how could he hide all these things? Well, said Kakashi cautiously. Everyone I talk to seems to dismiss him out of hand. Like he's inconsequential. And while he's not exactly deceptive about his abilities, he doesn't flaunt them either. If he's not put in a situation that calls for him to use his skills, he doesn't. My guess is that people didn't want to see anything good at him, and he pandered to their prejudices. His manner of talk and dress further caused people to underestimate him. Sarutobi leaned back, lost in thought for a moment. Normally I'd be impressed, continued Kakashi. It's an admirable trait for a ninja to have. But we're supposed to be a team, and he's treating it like an infiltration assignment. So did you try following him? Asked Sarutobi. Easier said than done. He knows when he's being followed, even when I'm using my best genjutsu. He doesn't flaunt that ability either, but I can tell by his movements and behavior that he knows I'm there. I don't think he can actually see through the genjutsu, since his attitude towards me is the same as it ever was. But he can definitely tell that someone is there. So you didn't find out anything? Oh, I found out lots of things, said Kakashi. I found out he's good friends with members of Team 8, Enko, and Yamanaka Ino. He likes gardening, and has a small garden set up in an abandoned training ground. He reads a lot, though I never got close enough to see just what is on those scrolls he's always reading. Sarutobi sighed heavily. Do you think I should assign someone to follow him? I don't think we should risk it, said Kakashi carefully. Even if the trackers are good enough, being discovered in a tricky situation could push him too far. He's already seems convinced people are out to get him, and he has voiced displeasure for my training, or more specifically non-existence thereof, to everyone who would listen. To be honest, I'm getting a bit annoyed. I'm going to get quite a bad reputation if he keeps this up. Hokage-sama, surely I can teach them something? Yes, well, said Sarutobi. Many people aren't sure whether Sasuke and Naruto can be trusted enough to be trained to their full potential. One is the QB container, and the other is obsessed with killing his older brother. Until they prove their loyalty to Konoha, we can't teach them anything serious, but I agree with you that teaching them nothing is going to be equally as disastrous. You said Sasuke is extremely good at taijutsu? Kakashi nodded. Good, said Sarutobi. Work with him on that. It's going to be years before he can use that effectively, no matter how much skill he has, and it will keep him busy. You can teach Sakura Genjutsu, and Naruto, well, you said he was the scout, and you have quite a lot of tracking expertise. Very well, said Kakashi. If that's all right with you, I will also teach them some basic skills, like tree walking exercise. Approved, said Sarutobi. And one more thing, Kakashi, try to find out the full extent of Naruto's abilities. Put him on the spot if you have to. He was trained by Anko, he can take it. Everything you find out is to be reported to me, and only to me, is that understood? Yes, good. You're dismissed. Break. It was a sunny day in Konoha, the same as any other, when Kakashi told them that they were taking things easy long enough and started holding training sessions. In Naruto's opinion, it was about time. The very first thing Kakashi taught them was the tree walking exercise. The look of Sasuke's face when Naruto and Sakura climbed to the top on their first try and he could not was absolutely priceless. Even greater surprise was Kakashi, who didn't act anything like what Naruto would have predicted. Instead of dropping everything to tend to the last Uchiha, Kakashi had mocked him mercilessly and left him to work on it until he can get to the top, while he gave Naruto and Sakura pointers about how to improve their tree walking skill. It took Sasuke only 2 days to master the exercise. Unfortunately, the lessons Kakashi organized for them afterwards were somewhat underwhelming. They consisted of tracking lessons, proper ways to set up a camp and forage for food in the wilderness, how to set up traps, how to detect and set up ambushes, ninja etiquette, and discussing combat scenarios. The only techniques he taught them were some simple genjutsu that Naruto and Sasuke were unlikely to ever use due to having more effective things in their arsenal. Finally, he would occasionally have the 3 of them fight against him to practice teamwork, or teach Sasuke how not to fry his teammates when fighting, as Naruto liked to think about it. Not exactly useless, no, but compared to what Naruto got from his other teachers. But anyway, he wasn't going to be like Sasuke, who was now grumbling all these things are a waste of his time. It was better than nothing. All right, said Kakashi. You've been doing well lately, so today we're going to do something different. We're going to have a spar. Naruto grinned. Now we're talking. First fight, Naruto versus Sakura, said Kakashi, motioning both of them to assume positions. Naruto ran up to his position, thinking about it. It was rather peculiar, actually. What with the academy's gender segregation when it came to sparring, he never actually fought against Sakura. Sakura was ranked higher than Hinata, and he could never really defeat the Hyuga. But Hinata didn't use gentle fists during academy matches, so it was probably a rather misleading ranking. Still, the best girl in the class, she ought to be good. He shifted into a battle stance. Sakura cracked her knuckles, grinning wickedly. It was probably supposed to be scary, but when you've faced Anko, withstood Guy's exuberance, nearly been skewered by a clanking wooden construct, and cut open a human corpse, this level of threat doesn't perturb you much. Ready? Asked Kakashi. Start. Sakura charged immediately, and Naruto opted to be on the defensive at the beginning. As she entered striking distance, however, Sakura threw a sloppy sideways punch at him, and he changed his mind. The punch was so straightforward that he dodged it with trivial ease and carried so much force behind it that the miss left her unbalanced. This was the sort of opportunity you don't miss. He snatched her hand while she was still shaky and pulled her towards him, smashing his knee into her stomach in the very same movement. Air knocked out of her lungs, Sakura crumbled onto the grass like a wet napkin, wheezing and rolling pitifully. Naruto couldn't believe it. This was the best female ninja in the class? Hinata and Ino both were a lot tougher than this. Hell, his pre-Cesori self could beat Sakura today, if he could bring himself to hurt his precious Sakura-chan. Well, that was short, said Kakashi, scratching his chin. Nah, are you, too, said Sakura, rising from the ground slowly. I'm going to kill you! After rising painfully from the ground, Sakura rushed at him again with murder in her eyes. Since Kakashi didn't stop her, Naruto figured they're still sparring. Sakura flipped through a couple of seals and Naruto recognized it as one of the genjutsu Kakashi taught them. Unfortunately for her, this one, just like most of them, was limited to visual stimuli. There seemed to be very few genjutsu users who thought with anything other than their eyes. Naruto closed his eyes and charged her, letting his ears guide his movements. Moments later, when he felt the genjutsu recede from his system, he opened his eyes, intensifying his attack. He used his knowledge of the human body to at places that would do the least damage. There is no point in utterly humiliating an obviously inferior opponent, and waited for her to tire out. He suspected she tries easily, and he was right. After less than a minute of intense taijutsu, she was panting like she was running a marathon. Her dress hampered her mobility, and he kept thinking how easy it would be to snatch her by that long hair of hers and bash her head against the ground. All right, that's enough, said Kakashi. Naruto wins. Since Sakura didn't seem to have worn him out particularly, we can move on to the next spar immediately. Naruto vs. Sasuke. Prepare yourselves. Ready? Start. Neither Naruto nor Sasuke charged, opting to observe the other for a few seconds. Naruto knew that Sasuke preferred for the opponent to make the first move and would start taunting him if he doesn't attack soon, and he wasn't in the mood for a taunting game. He grinned and placed his hands in a familiar hand seal. Clone. About 6 Sakuras appeared in front of him, causing Sasuke's face to twist in a horrified expression. Sasuke-kun! One Sakura cooed. He's so cute! The other one added. And then, with girlish screams, they all lounged after Sasuke, who fireballed them all. Next to Kakashi, the real Sakura fumed, glaring daggers at Naruto. Okay, said Kakashi. New rule, no ninjutsu. Just taijutsu for this spar. Naruto charged and, surprisingly, Sasuke charged at him in return. They clashed in the middle, throwing punches at each other. Sasuke was clearly better. He quickly managed to land 3 clean hits on Naruto. Naruto shrugged them off as best as he could, hoping to wear Sasuke out in a protracted battle. Go Sasuke-kun! Yelled Sakura. Pound that loser into the ground. Naruto dodged and counterattacked and dodged and it was in vain. Naruto, despite all his efforts, was being pounded into the ground, as Sakura put it. He was going to lose, and he didn't like to lose. Naruto had always fancied himself a frontline fighter, even if he did currently play the role of a scout and medic. He had sunk hours upon hours seeking help in developing his taijutsu, and now it turns out he can't even land a single strike on Sasuke? It was Shino all over again, except it didn't hurt so much when Shino beat the crap out of him. Shino was a friend after all, so he intentionally left a hole in his defenses, letting Sasuke bury his fist deep into his stomach, and then snatched Sasuke's arm in the process, and used his way to topple both of them to the ground. He tried his best to get Sasuke's arm into a deadlock, but it was clear the broody boy knew what he was trying to do and resisted quite effectively. The result was Naruto and Sasuke rolling around on the ground like a couple of schoolboys in a street fight. It was undignified. Thus Naruto's purpose was accomplished. Even if Sasuke wins, his pride would still be hurt by this turn of events. The fact that Kakashi was laughing at them would only make Sasuke angrier. In the end, Sasuke managed to free himself and they both got back up, only to have the fight terminated by Kakashi, who claimed he'd seen enough. He didn't have Sakura and Sasuke fight, and Naruto could understand his reasons. Sakura would never fight her precious Sasuke-kun for real, so there was not much point to it. He then started giving each one of them pointers about what they did wrong and had Naruto help Sakura while he works on Sasuke, claiming the broody boy would be helped more by sparring with him than either of them. While perhaps true, it left a sour taste in Naruto's mouth. He had nothing much to gain by sparring with Sakura either. After a few fights, it was clear that Sakura wasn't his match. She wasn't all that bad in terms of skill, now that she knew she has to take him seriously, but she had no stamina and resilience, and her movements betrayed a lack of regular practice. Worse, she kept paying more attention to Sasuke's fight with Kakashi than the one with him. Naruto debated the merits of beating her up rather viciously to convince her she should in fact pay attention to her opponent, when a better idea came to him. You know Sakura, said Naruto. Ino is a lot better than you. Sakura stopped dead in her tracks, eyes wide. What? Yeah, she and I spar every week. Since we graduated from the academy, actually. She's pretty good, let me tell you, she can even beat me on occasion. How did you get better scores than her again? Shut up. Sakura screamed. I'm 10 times better than Ino Pig. It doesn't seem like that to me. I could beat you without breaking a sweat. He leaned towards Sakura conspirationally. You know what? Sasuke once told me he never chose any of his fangirls because they were all weak. Ino is clearly taking this rivalry seriously. I think she has more chance of getting Sasuke-kun than you do. That was a complete and utter lie, of course. Sasuke never spoke more than 3 words to him, much less confide something like that to him. But it worked. Eyes blazing, Sakura charged at Naruto with renewed vigor. Break. Naruto waited silently while Hinata struggled with the cut on his arm, slowly healing it. It was a bit of a hack job really, and Naruto could do it better and faster, but he supposed he could bear it out for the sake of helping his friend. She needed the exercise. Tea there, she said finally. All done, thanks, said Naruto. You're getting the hang of this faster than I did. I'm kinda jealous. Well, Naruto, said Kurenai beside them, I was certainly expecting a long chase after hearing so much about your exploits, but nothing like this. I'm actually rather disappointed in my team. They're supposed to be good at tracking, and it took them 3 whole hours to track you down and subdue you. We're intensifying our training regimen from tomorrow on. Kiba glared at Naruto, clearly unhappy about this, and Akamaru even sent a growl in the blonde's direction. It seems that unlike Naruto, they have no shortage of training from their sensei. Or maybe they're just angry at Naruto for peppering them with stink bombs earlier? But what was he supposed to do, really? Kurenai had asked him to hold out as long as possible against her team while they attempts to track him down. It's not his problem that they suck at tracking. Anyway, I wanted to give you all this, said Naruto, taking out a bunch of scrolls and throwing they all to Kiba, Shino, and Hinata. These are storage scrolls, said Kiba with a frown. I don't think someone in your financial position should be buying us something this expensive. It costs nothing when you make them yourself, said Naruto. Well, except for the cost of ink and paper. But I'm not that poor. You can make those? Asked Kiba. I thought sealing was some high-level shit. Kurenai glared at the Inuzuka, silently telling him to watch his language. Kiba crossed his arms over his chest and mumbled something unintelligible. Sure is, said Naruto. Because even the simplest seals require massive amount of chakra. Most people don't have the necessary chakra reserves to practice sealing until they reach Jounin, and some not even then. However, my tenant grants me massive amounts of chakra to use, so... Still, said Kurenai, turning the storage scroll in her hands. Finding someone to teach you how to make those is impressive enough. There aren't many seal masters around, even in Konoha. Actually, the creation process of storage scrolls and explosive notes isn't that secret, said Naruto. That's why they're so easy to come by. It's the other types of seals that are hard to find a teacher for. A masterful use of misdirection, said Kurenai wryly. You imply that you only know how to make storage scrolls, and perhaps explosive notes, but you never actually say so. Unfortunately, I've seen plenty of sealing scrolls, and these are not the standard ones. If anything, they look more sophisticated than regular ones. Naruto chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his head. Busted. But anyway, said Kurenai. It doesn't really matter to me. Not my business to pry. I assume you're willing to be my team's target next month, too? If nothing unexpected comes up, sure, said Naruto. And you better believe we won't take 3 hours next time, said Kiba. Indeed, agreed Shino. Naruto grinned. We'll see. Next time I'm aiming for 5. Cackling maliciously, he jumped up and ran while Kiba and Akamaru chased after him, shouting and barking. Damn, he kind of missed these sorts of chases. Break. Naruto just couldn't let things continue like this. That's why, after one of Team 7's training sessions, he stayed behind to discuss things with Kakashi. His sensei seemed to be waiting for him. You're being very unfair, began Naruto. How so? Asked Kakashi, for once not reading his damnable porn while talking. Sasuke and Sakura are getting a decent deal out of these training sessions, but I'm getting very little benefit. The teamwork lessons all boil down to getting Sasuke to care for what his teammates are doing. The genjutsu are only useful to Sakura, and since I'm constantly sparring with Sakura while you spar with Sasuke, they are the only one whose taijutsu is improving. Tracking is nice and all, but I want to be able to fight. Well, Naruto, I've tailored the lessons to develop your strengths, said Kakashi, and it's hard to do so for someone who's hiding his abilities from me. Naruto exhaled in annoyance. Let me guess, you're the one who followed me around a while back? When Kakashi didn't say anything, Naruto took that as a sign of admission. Look, Kakashi-sensei, these abilities that I'm hiding, as you say, aren't something you can help me with. How do you know that? Asked Kakashi curiously. More importantly, how do you expect to work with your team effectively if you intend to pull out unknown abilities in dire situations? Your teammates need to know your capabilities if they are to reach correct decisions on the field. Oh, give me a break, said Naruto. You mean like Sasuke pulling out new fire techniques out of his ass every once in a while? Where is he getting all of those anyway? Every time I try to get some techniques, it turns out people guard them like most precious of treasures. The old Uchiha library at their compound probably, said Kakashi. In any case, if you're worried about a repeat of Anko, you don't have to worry. I haven't gotten in the way of you receiving help from Kurenai and her team, have I? Aside from medical techniques and storage scrolls, what else can you do? Well, it seems like you already know, began Naruto. Cut the crap, Naruto, said Kakashi crankily. We both know that's not all you're hiding. What do you mean? Asked Naruto innocently. What else would I be hiding? Well, there's that understanding you reached with Tora that lets you find it in 10 minutes flat. You'll forgive me if I find it implausible you actually spoke to that furry demon and got it to cut you a deal. Tracking seals, TR. You place tracking seals on Tora? Duh. As for capture, you'd be surprised how docile animals get once they're hit with a dose of knockout poison. Ah. I was wondering why it's so subdued when you carry it. But anyway, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You never indicated that you know how to place tracking seals. Naruto, I'm not asking you to tell me where you got these skills, because you'll just assign someone to shadow me until they find out. No, I won't. All I ask is that you tell me what I can expect from you. That's all. Anything you tell me is going to be strictly between you, me, and the Hokage. You trust the Hokage, don't you? Naruto pouted. He came here to give Kakashi a mouthful, but here he was, backed into a corner with little choice in what to do. He was never a very good liar, and it was clear that Kakashi and the old man were starting to get restless around the mystery he represented. He would have to throw them a bone or two. All right, said Naruto. First of all, nothing I've said so far was a lie, just incomplete. I know, said Kakashi with amusement. I have to commend you on that. Most ninjas don't realize that it's easier to hide the truth with another truth than with lies. If your stories were pure fabrications, you wouldn't have lasted even 1/4 as long. Right, said Naruto. About my skills. Let's see. I am fairly proficient with a variety of seals, and the theory behind them. I know a great deal about poisons. I guess you already know I have a fair bit of medic training, but it's not just medical techniques but the whole deal. I have a really neat trick with explosive seals embedded on a kunai that let me stand up to Mizuki and— Wait, back up a bit. What trick? Naruto pulled out one of his special kunai and showed it to Kakashi before throwing it into a nearby tree and causing it to explode with a tug on the chakra string connected to the explosive seals riddling its surface. No note, said Kakashi, training off. And no signs of explosion before it happens. How do you do that? It's a secret, said Naruto with a grin. Humph, grunted Kakashi, before getting a faraway look. That's one nasty surprise you've got there, Naruto. It reminds me of one other person who used special kunai. Really? Who? It's a secret, said Kakashi with a smile. Anyway, is that all? No, said Naruto. I have one other skill, but I intend to keep that one a secret until I become Chunin at least. I will tell you this, though, unless things really go south, I don't intend to use it before then either. I'm still not proficient enough in it to use it reliably. Kakashi scrutinized Naruto for several seconds. Naruto did his best to look as bored and apathetic as possible. He called it his Cesori impersonation. Very well, said Kakashi. You will have to tell this to your teammates, you realize? I don't think that's such a good idea, said Naruto. I suppose Sasuke wouldn't care either way, but Sakura could never keep her mouth shut about it. She will, said Kakashi. I will make sure she understands the importance of not revealing things about your teammates without their permission. Naruto was going to protest when an idea came to him. It seemed crazy at first, but he started thinking about and concluded that he has nothing to lose. It's not like he was getting along well with either Sasuke or Sakura. Hell, if they freak out, maybe he could get old man to finally put him with someone else. Kakashi-sensei. I have an even better idea. Break. Well, that's all for today, said Kakashi. Not so fast, Sasuke. Today Naruto is going to tell us all something about himself. Sakura and Sasuke actually exchanged glances at this, unsure how to react at this turn of events, before gathering up and sitting on the grass around Kakashi and Naruto. Sakura tried to edge closer to Sasuke, but a glare from the Uchiha stopped her. Suddenly in a bad mood, she turned towards Naruto. What did you do now? She asked with annoyance. I told Kakashi a few secrets about myself, and he insisted I share them with you, said Naruto calmly. Teamwork and all that. What do secrets have to do with teamwork? Said Sakura, before looking at Kakashi. You're not going to make us tell our secrets too, are you? Unless you're keeping some of your abilities secret like Naruto. No, said Kakashi. Secret abilities? Asked Sasuke with a frown, suddenly interested. Yes, said Naruto. But first, I have one other secret to tell you. The thing is, though, this secret is classified as an S-class secret of Konoha, and the only people allowed to talk about it are me and the Hokage. This means that if you blabber on about what I tell you today, you get executed. Sakura paled while Sasuke just straightened up, suddenly really interested. If you can't handle that kind of pressure, you can leave now, said Kakashi. He knew that wouldn't happen though. Sasuke wouldn't leave for anything, and by extension Sakura wouldn't either. Start talking already, Sasuke snapped. Ahem, Naruto coughed theatrically. 12 years ago Kyuubi was approaching Konoha. The fourth Hokage searched far and wide for something that could kill the Nine Tails. He failed, but protested Sakura. He failed, stated Naruto more firmly, because the Bijou cannot be killed. They are creatures of raw chakra, simply reforming after a while if they're ever dispersed by a strong enough attack. Instead, the fourth found a way to seal the Kyuubi away into a newborn baby. Naruto paused for effect before pointing at himself with both thumbs and a giant grin. Sasuke and Sakura looked at Kakashi incredulously, trying to see if this is some sort of an elaborate prank. Kakashi nodded gravely, and Sakura reached out with her hand and pinched Kakashi's shoulder. Ouch, said Kakashi, rubbing the spot. He's not a clone, said Sakura. But that means… Prove it, said Sasuke suddenly, his eyes boring into Naruto's. Naruto lifted up his shirt, and a complex seal soon erupted into existence on his stomach. This was actually the first time Kakashi had seen the seal, and he was very impressed. He had very rudimentary understanding of sealing, mostly limited to having memorized a few common seal arrays with the help of his Sharingan, but even he could see that something like this required tremendous skill. To create something this complex while pressed for time and succeed in sealing the greatest of the Bijou with it was damn impressive. Naruto really is… began Sakura. The term is Jinchuriki, said Kakashi. The fourth wanted the people of Konoha to view Naruto as a hero that saved Konoha, but many civilians and a few ninjas didn't see things that way. As a consequence, the third decreed that no one would discuss Naruto's status as a jailer of the Kyuubi under the pain of death. Kakashi had to admit things went as Naruto predicted. Once he told them that he housed the strongest of Bijou in his belly, the fact that he has been keeping his sealing expertise and his medic nin training secret from them seemed downright inconsequential by comparison. In any case, this was the first time the three of them had talked amongst each other since their graduation, so this was definitely a success in Kakashi's eyes. Maybe there is hope for this team, after all.